Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Soul, featuring the voices of Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Angela Bassett, and Felicia Rashad, directed by Pete Docter. Now, before I get into this movie, I said before that I was looking forward to this movie because it looked really good based on the trailers. And will it disappoint? I watched it twice, once to take it in, second time to take notes. We'll see. Let's get into it. Joel Gardner, voiced by Jamie Foxx, is a part time middle school music teacher as he teaches students, like Connie, for example, to play professionally after when he was a kid, he didn't want to be in a jazz club until his father brings him in and hears the music. And his mother, Libba, voiced by Felicia Rashad, hey, welcome back from Creed. Not a kids movie too, or maybe it could be, I don't know, but doesn't want Joe to have gigs in music as he gets a full-time job as a band teacher, and he gets an audition to play in Dorothea Williams' band thanks to Curly, who's an old student of his, and he plays in The Zone with Dorothea, voiced by Angela Bassett, accepts him reluctantly as he tells a friend as he falls in a sewer that he got the gig and becomes a soul as he realizes he's dead. And I love the animation of the human world as well as the soul world. And the soul world, which is called the Great Before, looks absolutely tremendous as Joe falls into a world of opportunity in a world full of souls called Jerry, and Joe tries to escape but can't as he volunteers to help a child soul to become a part of his life. Or a part of life, excuse me. And what their profession is when they grow up, called the Spark. And Joe gets soul number 22, voiced by Tina Fey, who's humiliated a ton of role models like Marie Antoinette, Muhammad Ali, and Abraham Lincoln, for example. And I really enjoyed the plot and very much care for these characters as Joe sees himself in a hospital bed in his imagination. In this movie, I hope to get in on 4K Blu-ray because it looks beautiful. And I really like how Pete Docter comes up with his imagination from a house with a bunch of balloons flying on the sky to what goes on in people's minds to the world of souls. It's just so good. They get inside a box to find a hippie named Moonwind who helps cure a soul to become alive again, and takes Joe to the hospital bed and takes 22 with him as they wake up, and Joe becomes a cat named Mr. Mittens, and 22 is in Joe's body. And they get out of the hospital into New York City, and 22 is afraid of the noise as she hides in a random spot, and Joe grabs pizza as 22 as she smells it and tastes it for the first time, and they go to the street at where Moonwind is at and gets a time to get Joe back in the body of his own as they call a cab and finds Dorothea Williams with Curly in the cab and wearing a hospital gown with pizza grease all over, and thinks he's crazy as he gets his gig taken away from him by Robert, who's a piano musician. Connie comes by as she's trying to quit, and 22 hears her out and thinks she loves it. And Connie doesn't quit after all, and part of the scene's message is not quite what you love, which is a good message. Is to not quit what you love. I'm sorry, not quit what you love, which is a good message for kids and adults. 22 puts on a suit on Joe's body, and the cat cuts part of the hair and gets a barber named Dez as 22 tries a lollipop and Dez cuts Joe's hair, and we get to know Dez, the barber, as he didn't always want to be a barber. He wanted to be a veterinarian, but barber school was cheaper for reasons I probably won't get into. As we also get to know 22 as well as Joe, who grows into a human being with heart. Meanwhile, Terry, who's the accountant, of the soul world and captures Paul, who was antagonizing Joe at the barber shop, thinking he was Joe, and brings him back to the earth. Meanwhile, 22 tears the pants on Joe, and he, as a cat, thinks they have to go to Libba's shop, aka his mother's shop, I'll say. And they go to the subway and they hear soul music, and they get on the subway and 22 drinks a drink underneath the seat. And they get to Libba's shop, and Libba gives Joe a lecture of the music gig. And Joe gives the speech what he would do to accept the gig and love his mother no matter what. Otherwise, no existence. So Libba gives Joe the suit his father wore earlier in his life when he was alive. And he gets to the plane, or no, not plane, place, where he's playing for Dorothea Williams and meets Moonwind and Joe, as a 22, realizes Earth is not all that bad, as she hated Earth before, wants to stay on Earth as Joe, as a cat, goes after his own body and gets back to the soul world. As Terry kidnaps them, as he says Joe cheated and 22 got her spark, and as 22 throws the spark at Joe, and as 22 realizes she has no purpose, and Joe goes back to his body and plays with Dorothea, and the band for the night plays with the band for the night and joins the band, but he feels different because he wants to help 22 have a purpose. And this movie is such a great message to the world. It's like I said before, this movie's great for 3 to 95-year-olds, I'll say. Maybe 100, I don't know. Joe plays his music he finds with 22 in his apartment as he realizes he needs to go back into the soul world. And how does he do that? He gets in the zone that we see earlier in the film and finds Moonwind and goes after 22 as a lost soul and goes to the soul world. And Joe tells 22 she's ready to live, and he gets her inner soul as a bad soul. And Joe gives 22 the piece of flower leaf and goes with 22 to Earth briefly, as he'll help her halfway and lets 22 go as he's about to go where he was afraid to go. And the Jerrys give Joe another chance on Earth and learns to get to know the world, including his barber and as well as his mother and the band as it is. And that was such a beautiful ending, and the climax in this movie is amazing. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 9.4 out of 10. The movie was beautiful with a great message to the world, and the characters are so relatable. The animation is great in both worlds, as it was times very breathtaking. And the plot is so relatable, as this is the best movie of the year, in my opinion anyways. This is a very high recommendation that I don't see that often in a movie. And you know what? I love this movie. I love its message to the entire world, as the director Pete Docter has once again made another great movie. Let's hear you for you, Pete. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for the reviews of Up, Inside Out, and now Soul. And until Pete Docter makes another movie, it's time to go back to the world.